For right now, we are just waiting on players to join. Looks like we'll see our map in a few moments. Possibly a 4v4 scrim. What does that say? Hideout. Okay. We may be starting. Hideout. No, we are doing 5v5. Oh, Amila. Oh no. A bro sub. Okay. Hang on, my mouse sense isn't right. There we go. Okay, it looks like it will be a 5v5, and we're waiting a tiny bit. No, we are going into this a 5v4. Hideout first map. Bottom floor. Who is on sides? LFT is on offense and Bros is on defense. Possibly a split push coming out here from LFT. No, just a lurk over there on the A site. However, a very aggressive storage hold here. Although as I say that, a player rotates back through arcade. Still, 2 players is a lot. Usually only see one actually in storage and one sits back here in waterfall. However, they are opting for aggression. The bot does appear to be rotating to the A site with Peep here on the doorway. Ooh, Llama takes out Peep with the Taurus, and not a good start. Llama also takes out the bot, and now it's a 3v5. No damage yet, dealt 2 pros, so we'll see how this goes. Catloaf is now very low, and Blaze Shark almost swings out there, however is stopped by the hatch. However, there isn't actually anyone on it right now. Both the players have rotated back into sight, however they are still very aggressive here on the wall. One swings out, takes out TLS, Amilo swings out, gets Doom, very low though. 1, but Llama back here in Waterfall gets the final pick on Catloaf. Very aggressive hold in storage there. LFT just didn't seem quite ready for that. And the bot going over to the window after breaking storage door also didn't help very much. Personally, I think Peep should have gone with his teammates. That would have allowed them to fare a little bit better in storage, because pistol round is really about getting as many people in one place as possible so you can do the most damage, because pistols aren't going to do as much damage as SMGs or rifles. So in pistol rounds, if you can get 2 people shooting at 1 person, then that is basically the equivalent of having an SMG. Bros did a very good job though. They were able to play very aggressive, however not hold out too far for too long. They were able to rotate back to site before getting any getting picked off, and that allowed them to get, I believe it was a flawless last round. No, it was not. Only 2 people died though. Peep and the bot once again dead already. Unfortunate there, but not much can be done about that. One on a lean peek here on door. Catloaf almost takes him out. Only 1 headshot though. Not quite enough. However, Amilo is now 27 HP. Is now a 2v5 on top floor. TLS checking his corners, especially downstairs. That is a very common corner to camp. Maybe caught out here on timing. And Blaze Shark takes him out. Doom is now in a 1v5. Bro's getting a tad bit aggressive here. They don't want to let Doom get away with this RCP. He swings but is taken out by Blaze Shark. Bros didn't play quite as aggressive there, but they played out just far enough, for example on A door, that they were able to get picks and make it safely back to site without giving LFT the chance to do any refrags. However, they would not have very easily been able to get any refrags anyway because they played very spread out. It was almost like a 2v1 in Bro's favor every single time. Now we're on middle floor, and we do see LFT getting ready for a laundry and garage side push. However, there is a player very close to laundry window, and the llama is downstairs. That's 2 picks. Both of them real players, and now the bot is dead, and Bros is now going to get very aggressive here. They have numbers advantage, so they can get away with it. However, TLS does take out Blaze Shark, not without taking a lot of damage. Almost gets the refrag for his teammate there, but this is going to be a tough round to win if he does decide to swing in. Four HP and a dream to win this round, unless he decides to save, which personally I do think that is the better option. You have a rifle in $0 right now. It is going to be more effective if you save your weapon. Especially since most of the Bros players are going to be able to afford next round. I believe if Crazy Lee dies, he won't be able to afford, but Blaze Shark or Drury could if they needed to. It does appear to be a save, and that is the right call, I believe. He has a rifle and 4 HP. There is very little chance of actually winning this round. The llama is a DC though. That would make it a tiny bit easier if he does decide to swing. LFT just wasn't ready for that peek here downstairs. Only recently have I really seen it being used though. Until I started playing more comp recently. I haven't seen it like at all. So interesting that that has emerged. Teams will now have to start having someone watch that doorway in case there is a spawn peek. Back on the top floor, last time they had a very spread out push, so hopefully they can group up this time and make sure that they don't give any free 1v1s, 2v1s to the Bros squad. Does appear that it will be a site push. Hopefully we also see some drones going in. I haven't seen them use a drone yet, and drones can be very useful to spot players in very aggro positions like Amila was at this door before. I believe there was also someone in bedroom last time, however, I don't remember exactly. Player back here on balcony. Bad nade goes out. Doesn't catch any damage. A lot of players here on hatch, not really doing anything. As I say that, TLS and Potato have dropped hatch. However, there is a player on the door. They rotate off, and that's going to be free control of front A site. No roam downstairs is going to make this A push very easy for them. As long as they can get that wall open, the plant should be mostly free, with these trips also too high up to cause any real damage. They're going to be able to crouch walk under these. Very tight pixel angle there on head peak. Smoke goes out. Not quite a good angle though. Doom on the couch, perhaps trying to catch out the static. However, can't quite do it. Very tight lean peaks here coming out from Bros. We'll see how LFT tries to combat this. A roam is taken out by Potato. However, not before getting TLS. Unfortunate pick there. Llama on tub gets a pick. Now it's a 3v4. Ooh. Potato is able to get one, but Llama refrags that. Now it's a 2v3. 40 seconds on the clock. LFT is going to have to do something soon. However, they need to be careful for the tub player. That lean peak is very dangerous if you don't pre-fire it. Bad instant goes out. 1v3, 20 seconds on the clock. Bros does appear to be getting a little bit antsy right now. Catloaf stuck reloading, and Blaze Shark gets the pick. 4-0. Unfortunate so far for LFT. They just haven't been grouping together as much as they need to be. That round they were able to push A site relatively cohesively. However, that flank watch was just not in the right position, and it allowed the roam to get one of the LFT players. Going into 5th round, I'm interested to see how the teams buy out. Of course, Bros doesn't have much of an issue given the fact that 3 of their players has max money, but LFT, they're going to have to consider what they want to buy, especially if they want to buy a rifle next round on swap round. It does look like most of them will be able to buy 1, maybe 2 rifles. The drone goes out early. Not great. TLS is able to get Dreary, not without taking damage. Luckily, they have a stim. They know another player is in garage. Nade goes out. No damage, though. Another player has rotated into garage. Ooh, Amilo takes out Doom. TLS not quite able to get the refrag. We keep seeing this. Some of the LFT players are swinging out and their teammates aren't able to get their refrags. Peep goes down watching the flank. He's upstairs now. No one currently in garage, but they don't know that there is one on B door. Catloaf has made it past the roam upstairs. However, it does seem like they know they're there. He's going back down the stairs, and Kalov was ready for it. However, he looked away from the angle. Ooh, Kalov on the flank watch is able to take out the last player on the Bros squad. That's going to be very good for LFT now. They have their first round. You definitely don't want to be going 6-0 in the first half of any map, especially when it's Hideout and you're on offense. Hideout tends to be a very offensive-sided map, so you want to make sure you get at least 2 round wins. You can do it with 1, however, it is much easier if you have a little bit of leeway with 2 rounds. They're going to have enough money to buy everything they need, however, so is Bros. 2 of their players had max money in the beginning, and the other 2 were fairly close. So, both teams are going to be going in with mostly anything they need. So, I'll be interested to see how they play this out. Once again, a strong storage placement. However, they seem to be going more upstairs. Interesting decoy placement. They take out their bot, maybe trying not to give any weapons. TLS is able to take out Jariri, who was back in parkour. It's not looking good so far for Bros. They are down 3 players, and the Llama has a Kanut as well. This could end up being a round win for LFT. Oh, the Llama playing close takes out TLS. However, they are flashed. Doom takes out 1. Amilo gets the refrag, but Peep over in Con refrags that. LFT has finally started getting a little bit of momentum. 2 rounds in their pocket now, and side swap could make it a little bit easier for them. Bros is now on offense, and it's middle floor. We'll likely see a garage push coming out. Maybe someone goes laundry window. However, they are down a player, so it would be smarter to group up and use their player disadvantage to try and all 4 swing in garage and get as many picks as possible as quickly as possible. Drone going in, however, no garage hold on the side of LFT. Drone goes to check roam, but maybe doesn't quite check deep enough. They're going to have to be careful of this roam here in theater. Both walls are blown on B site though. TLS is able to get the llama. Jariri takes out TLS. Amilu swings into sight, gets potato. That's going to be EMP plant started. Drury takes out Catloaf, and now it's a 3v1. Peep takes out Crazy Lee, but Amilo on the lean peak there. Not the greatest round there from LFT. They had no defense at all in Garage, and that allowed Bros to take a lot of space very early. They were able to get both walls open in, I believe that was 30 seconds. And that did not help them defend site. Both walls being blown is very hard to fight because there's so many angles on con and AB door that it's too hard to fight. Especially if you have a player disadvantage, because after Bros got in, they got a lot of picks, in the end being a 3v1. Does look like LFT has learned from this, though. They have 2 players in storage. Ooh, pre-nade going in. Llama taking a lot of damage very early. Drone does go down, I think, before it spots Potato. Flashbang goes out, doesn't quite get anyone. That flashbang will, though, even one of their teammates. However, do they know that there's 2 players in Waterfall now? Nade goes out, no damage. EMP is getting planted. Catloaf in parkour takes out 1. Player on wall gets refrags. A huge fight happening over here at Waterfall. 2v2 now. 1 player is in sight. Ooh. Peep rotates off at the right time to not get picked off. TLS is holding storage door. However, Drury looks away at the wrong time. However, Crazy Lee is the one that goes down instead. Drury is healing back to full health thanks to that stim. However, he is at a gun disadvantage against Pete. But TLS is able to take him out. Good round there from LFT. They were able to use the stronghold in Waterfall to get a lot of picks there. Granted, it was a huge firefight back there. I don't remember all who died, but Bros was able to take stairs and sort of pinch Waterfall, but it ended up making it even 2-2, and LFT was just able to get enough picks that they won the round, and that's 3-5. Still not completely undoable. However, they need to do a pretty good job here on defense. Top floor, from my experience, tends to be a little bit offense-sided if you do decide to push A. Because it's very easy to get this wall open. However, the difficult part is getting the plant. Because as long as the defenders have enough utility, they can deny that plant for maybe 20 seconds if they need to. I do see that both the nades and one of the incense are bought on LFT's side, hopefully used to deny the plant. Bros has foam on the wall and a flank watch, so this should be a pretty good round for them. Almost getting the EMP on the wall. No utility to deny. However, Llama does take a little bit of damage at the end there. Catloaf is able to take out Dreary. And now it's a retake situation for LFT. However, they do have a lot more players. Crazy Lee takes out a lot of LFT players. Llama is also playing very aggro. Llama is able to get a refrag from Catloaf. Doom takes out Rona. And LFT isn't going to have enough time. Potato is able to take out Llama. Milo takes out Doom. That's a rifle out of the hands of LFT. It might have been smarter to just not swing that angle. And now Doom doesn't have a rifle. Peep once again going for that pre-nade from roof. We started seeing this a lot more often, and me especially in comp, have seen it come out a lot. Enough that I see a lot of teams have a player upstairs waiting for the window to be broken. Personally, I think the pre-nade is a tad bit overrated. I see it get at most like 50 damage on an enemy. But in pistol round, that is worth it. But in rifle rounds, when there's usually at least one stim, I don't see it as very worth it. Here's the nade, and yeah, it gets 34 damage on the Milo. Storage door is open. Catloaf and parkour does take a little bit of damage though. Doom is here in storage. Flashbang goes out, but he gets a 2k. And he's able to get an RCP off the ground. Drury swings wall, gets potato. Doom gets a trade off on Rona. Lot of damage there. No, never mind. That's not a lot of damage. Crazy Lee on the stairs is able to get a pick. Drury on the back takes out Peep. Now it's a 2v2. This evened out very quickly. Ooh, Drury takes out TLS, but not without taking a large amount of damage. Now it's a 1v2 for Catloaf. Drury is very low, however Crazy Lee is full HP. Drury is going to get stimmed, however it's not going to be enough to protect him from a headshot from that Auril. However, is Catloaf aware that they are rotating? That explosion is going to tip him off that they have rotated. And hopefully he grabs a better gun. One v2 situation. Both have rifles. We'll see how Catloaf approaches this. One is outside the window and one in wine cellar. He's going to have to be careful for this one in wine cellar, because those wall banks are going to be hard to deal with. Unfortunate timing there, and Dreary is able to get the pick through the wall. Good play there for Bros. They were able to bait Catloaf with the player on the window, and then Dreary was able to get the pick there by swinging the wall. Here is final scores. Llama and Emilo putting in work for Bros, while TLS and actually it's quite spread out here on LFT. 7-6-6-6-4. Does look like we will be seeing our next map, Mall. Interestingly enough, I have been seeing a lot of Maul in my casts. I feel like I know. Well, I guess it's not fair to compare that to my experiences because the Royals' first ban was always Maul, so it makes sense that I never really saw Maul. We are starting off on this bottom floor with Bros on the offense. It does seem to be a records push, and LFT does not seem to be ready for this. Foam is on wall, and Doom is in a relatively good position, but he decides to rotate off and is shot in the back. Not the smartest play there, and the EMP planter is now in sight. TLS is able to take out Emilo, but that flashbang does stall them for enough time. Potato is able to stop the plant, but all those trades, now it's a 2v1. Peep is very low right now, but Rona is also very close to being one tap with the Spectral. If they take a single headshot from that, they're going to be 1 HP. Ooh, but Kaluf is able to take out Rona, and that's round 1 for LFT. A very good start compared to last map. Off to a good start there, and that's going to set them up this round. They're going to be able to buy 3 SMGs, and the people who are not are going to have plenty of money next round to buy anything they really need. A lot of utility going down. I already see a static. I believe I saw... No, not a door blocker. Never mind. Just a static. It will be an A-site push over here through the side door. We'll see how this goes for them. A lot of wallbangs going through, however, not a lot of damage dealt. However, as I say that, Crazy Lee takes a lot of damage from the player playing very aggro here. Doom is able to trade with Crazy Lee. Not a whole lot of damage being traded right now. However, Bros is playing very slow right now. But once they get this other wall blown, I do believe things will speed up a tiny bit. Potato is able to take out Dreary. And Peep is going for a roam here. Ooh, but Llama and Rona both get picks, and now it's a 1v2. Rona does have EMP, but they do seem a little bit wary of where Peep is. EMP is planted, and now it's a retake situation for Peep. Interesting choice to swing out on that wall, and Peep is going to hear Llama sprinting. Now it's a 1v1, and Rona does not have very much HP. Ooh, but that instant is troublesome. That's going to stall for a lot of time. And Rona is able to get Peep. He was too focused on the EMP, but if he wasn't, he might not have had time to defuse. Very good comeback there from Bros. They were able to get a lot of picks there. Llama and who was it? Was it Rona that were able to get 2 picks that left no one on site and put Peep into the 1v2 situation. Does look like now we may be going for a stairs side push. However, TLS is in a very good position to stop this. It does look like they will be rotating over to the bookstore. However, there is still a bot on this window, and that's going to be a very early pick for LFT. They will be taking space here in bookstore with drone checking as many corners as possible. Drone not taken out quite yet. Does go down, however not before getting a lot of information. Crazy Lee is able to take out Peep back in sight. And that static is very troublesome right now. Drury gets TLS. So Vezin on the ground. They do pick it up though. Foam is on wall, however, they seem very hesitant to blow it. You tend to want to get walls blown as soon as possible. However, Drury is making that a little bit difficult because he is standing right in front of it. Ooh, instant goes down. And the Vezin along with it. Potato here in con is very troublesome. However, it is a rotation. Flashbang goes out. Emilio takes out Potato, and now it's a 1v3. But Calif goes down to Drury, who is still pushing the other side. Unfortunate round there from LFT. They are getting picked apart now. Again, they're offering just way too many 1v1s and 2v1s and losing because of it. Now going into round 4, both teams will have mostly all Vezins. We do see an Auril and 2 Vipers, along with a Marui from the Llama. Not a lot of held utility in the hands of LFT though. Or Bros. Interesting to not bring in too much util. We'll see how this works out for them. Drone does go in and Drury follows very close behind. They will have to be careful for that player on stairs. I don't believe they know he's there. Ooh. Potato almost goes down, but now they know they're pushing A site. Ensign goes on con, and I do believe this site push is going to start. Ooh, unfortunate lag spike there. And that's going to set up this defense for LFT. Two picks now, and Peep is slightly low, but the player advantage is still going to be good. Doom on the roam is able to get two, but Bulma refrags that. Potato with a blind fire, though, takes out the last Bros player. That evens up the score, and a very good round there from LFT. After Doom came in with his roam, the rest of the players on LFT were able to swing out and get the refrag for him. Drury is definitely putting in work, but the kills are very spread out on LFT. Amilo and Drury are both swinging in. However, they will have to be careful for these players here. Decoy is going up, and the Llama does get a pick on Peep over on the stairs. That's not going to be great for the defense. Crazy Lee does take out Doom. Llama swings out, gets two. Ooh, but Dreary TKs. EMP is getting planted, and Drury is trying to cover. Potato is left in a 1v4 with 11 HP. They need to wait for that syringe to finish up. Perfect timing. He's going to have to make his move. Oh, with the cross angle there. Crazy Lee and Amilo both holding con. Llama has really climbed the leaderboard. That 3K allowed him to get to second to top. A very good 3K there. We go into the swap round with Bros up 1. We'll see how they decide to push this middle floor site. It does look like they will be going for a similar play as before. However, they do have one player holding the roam here. However, they do go down to Doom. That is the Llama dead, one of their better fraggers. TLS takes out Dreary. That's the 2 top frags of the team. This is not looking good. It does look like a rotation is in order. Except for Amilo. However, Doom is getting a little bit aggressive here. Milo does decide to leave. However, hopefully they don't get caught out by Doom. However, EMP has rotated. They're now entering site. However, Crazily is 3 HP. Milo does take out TLS. That's a good pick. Ooh, Instant goes out though. Potato also goes down. And Potato gets the third kill. That's 3-3 first half. Much better than Hideout. We'll see if LFT is able to win this map, or if Bros is going to do a lot better on defense. We will be on this bottom floor for LFT's first round attacking, and it does seem they will be going records. However, they seem very ready for this records push. 3 players sitting here. We'll see how LFT decides to push this. It looks like they're not. It does seem they will be rotating over to B site. Possibly going for a quick plant. They have left a player over here in records to watch for a jump out. However, Instant goes out. EMP does get planted though. LFT is now able to just hold from outside. 3v3, and this is looking very good for LFT. EMP is getting defused, and Peep is able to take out the planter and one of the players defending him. However, Drew does take out Doom. And Peep is able to get the third player. Once that EMP was planted, it was basically a round win for LFT. If you're able to pull off this plant spot, it is very good. I mean, as you can see, Bros couldn't do much there. And if you have several people sitting up there, even if you kill the first one, there could be several more ready to deny this defuse. We're now on this top floor, and we'll see which site LFT decides to push. Bros pushed A site both times it was top floor. And you usually don't see that. I usually see a very B site oriented attack. However, LFT does look like they will be going mid bay and A site. Drone going in, and I do believe they hear that. Instant goes out, only catches a little bit of damage though. Drone will notice a few players, but it won't catch the player on roam here. Hopefully they're ready for that. Doom is able to take out the llama in sight. Crazy Elite takes out 2, but Peep does get the refrag there. And they will be getting foam on wall. Wall is blown, and They're going to have to be careful for this player on table. TLS does seem to realize the angle is there. However, they are caught up in an engagement with the player on fridge over here. Bros is playing it very safe, holding angles as much as they can. EMP is passed up, and that's going to get the plant ready. However, Util is ready. Instant goes out, and Emilio is able to take out TLS. EMP is on the wall. 50 seconds left, and it's a 2v2. Peep is going to have to cover Catloaf when he plants. However, it is a 2v1. EMP is getting planted, and Drury is able to swing out and get Catloaf, but Peep is right there for the refrag. This is looking very good for LFT. Before, it was Bros that was going 7-3. Now it's looking like LFT might be going 7-3. Bros is still able to buy a fair bit of guns and utility. However, LFT has a lot more. Potato there has $6,000, and Peep, after buying guns and utility, has $1,500. It does look like we may be seeing an arcade push. No, maybe not. Maybe they're just they just keep showing off their pixel walks here. We do see bookstore door open, and drone goes in. Points out the players on the door, however they do rotate off fairly quickly. Some damage goes through the wall. And hopefully that drone called out to his teammates that there's someone very close to the door. Very slow push so far from LFT. Hopefully they can get foam on the wall soon enough. Flash goes out, doesn't quite get anyone though. Very tucked in defense right now. Foam is finally going on wall, and Catloaf is roaming. Peep also, it does look like it's a full rotation now. Peep gets a pick after Doom got one on a site. However, Doom is still pushing. Blaze is able to get one. Emilio and Drury also following suit. Now it's at 3v2. However, both players are on the same site. That will let Blaze Shark know that there is one. Potato takes out Emilio. MP is getting planted. TLS goes down. Player on table though. Blaze Shark takes the kill though. Unfortunate round there. Bros was able to win based off Blaze Shark's gun skill. It was starting to look very good for LFT there at the beginning of the round though. They were able to rotate and take full control of Arcade. However, Blaze Shark was able to get the 2 picks needed. We'll see how LFT decides to push this floor, since it is the second time doing it. Last time, it worked relatively well. They were able to push into a site and get EMP planted, however, not without losing a few players. We'll see if they have a way to counteract that, or if they're just going to do the same thing. Drone does go down, and TLS pushes up. Ensign goes out, but it's not a good one. Amilo swings out, but Potato gets the refrag. They're going to have to be careful of this player on door, though. They do decide to rotate off, and it's a 4v4. Nade goes out, won't quite catch any damage, though. Peep is here on the roam, though. He could catch these players off guard. No foam on wall yet. Peep has the foam. Ooh, that is not good. Peep has the foam here on the roam. That's one pick. However, he's not going to get it over to his teammates. Llama gets a 2k, but Potato does get a trade. Llama over here again. They have the EMP. Peep is now in a 1v2 situation, and they have the EMP. Ooh, Peep wins that gunfight. Emotes on him. Now it's a 1v1. However, Peep is at a health disadvantage. He does have a nade though. Ooh, throws it out, but a little bit too late at the wrong time. Maybe if Peep had thrown that nade a little bit sooner, it would have turned out different. However, not much that can be done about that. Just a timing thing. Now it's 5-5. Maybe I spoke too soon. We could... It's a real toss-up now. LFT has been doing pretty good, but Bros has started to catch up on this ending half of their defense. We are going to bottom floor, and it does look like we will be seeing a record side push. However, as I say this, LFT decides to rotate back to B site, perhaps trying the same plant they did last time. Catloaf is able to get Dreary, and we might be seeing the plant coming out once this instant and nade goes away. Catloaf does drop in, instant goes out. However, he is able to get out of the instant in time. Doom does get taken out, so does Catloaf, but the EMP is down. It's a 3v3 now. One player is going towards stairs, maybe hoping to get a pick, but they decide to go to door. Ooh, they take out one, but Peep is there with the refrag. Now it's a 2v1. Those look like they will be sticking the plant, but Peep is able to get the pick. Once again, pulling off this plant. Rose needs to throw their util a little bit better. That instant came out a little bit too early. They needed to throw it once the plant was starting so they could deny as much time as possible. Because once that EMP gets down, it is very difficult to fight unless you have a player upstairs on this arcade door. Because it's the only real way to get an angle on that. Emilio did have a good idea of going here to this doorway. However, the players are able to avoid that by simply crouching or double swinging it. However, LFT is now on match point, and we are to the middle floor. Now the only options are match point or LFT wins. Or not match point, OT, sorry. We will see an upper arcade play with starting off with a team flash. Flashbang goes out and TLS is able to get a pick. That's going to be very good for LFT. Doom swings in. They're going to have to be careful for this player on door. Ooh, Doom just barely avoids any damage. Blaze Shark takes out Potato. Peep and Catloaf have decided to rotate to try to get the other wall on A site. However, nothing has come of it yet. Nate goes out, catches a lot of damage. Emilio does take out TLS, and they're going to have to be careful for this player on door. Ooh, Doom is able to take out Llama, and now it's a 3v3, but as I say that, Emilio is able to take out Catloaf. Peep gets the refrag, and now it's a 2v2. However, health advantage is in the favor of LFT. They don't have EMP though. They're going to have to retrieve that from Arcade. However, Bros is holding an angle on it. Dreary is able to get a pick on Doom, and Blaze Shark gets the pick on that. Now it's OT. It is Bros that is choosing which side they want for OT. And we will likely see them choosing offense. LFT did do a little bit better on offense. Okay, never mind. Bros has chosen defense for OT. And we are seeing the bottom floor bomb site. Hopefully, Bros has learned their lesson and maybe puts a little bit more util on this window. And hopefully LFT isn't... I don't want to say dumb enough, but brave enough to go through this window again. However, it does seem it will be the case. A lot of utility to allow Catloaf to get this plant down as soon as possible. However, there is also a lot of utility on this window here. Double trips and a static. Ensign goes out, not quite good. Nade goes out, takes out all the utility in the way. Ooh, more utility goes out though, and Catloaf goes down. A very good comeback there from Bros. They were able to throw a new static on the window, and that stopped Catloaf from pushing up. LFT has decided to rotate, however the proxy will reveal their location, and now they need to move quickly. However, Bros does still have EMP, and they need to keep that in mind. Interesting choice to instant con as TLS takes out Crazy Lee. They have full control of A site, however, they don't have EMP. They also don't have foam. This is going to be tough to take, especially since there's only 45 seconds left. Peep and Potato both decide to go con while TLS goes through the site door. However, the nade doesn't take out the door blocker. Potato does go down, and now it's a 2v3. Ooh, TLS almost goes down to timing. Peep dies. Ooh, TLS with the collateral. Now it's a 1v1. There's 10 seconds on the clock, though. He's going to have to go for the kill. But TLS dies to timing. Emilo standing up at the right time. That was such a stressful round there. For a moment, it looked like LFT was going to be able to pull off that 1v3 clutch. TLS gets the collat at the beginning, but Emilo is able to get that last pick. Scores for anyone who's interested. Peep and TLS definitely putting in work for LFT. Last map, we didn't see Peep doing too well, but now he's 17 and 7. Very good job there. Emilo and Dreary putting in work for Bros, though. 13, 10, 12, and 9. And I mean, look at those assists. Emilo with 7, Dreary with 8, Crazily with 8, and Blaze Shark with 6. A lot of assists coming out there. Not exactly a great thing. However, it is good that they're not going down without a fight. Does look like they're deciding if they want to do a third map. It does seem we won't, or either that or LFT is just getting players to come in. It does look like we are not doing a third map. That was a great second map. Very fun to cast, especially the end there. A lot of tension there at the end. A 1v3 to try and win the map. However, a collat was not enough, and timing catches TLS out. Very good map. Anyways, that will be the end of the cast. The players have left, and that is the end of the scrim. Thank you for tuning in if you did. If you don't mind, subscribing would help very much. If not, you can just leave a like. That's all I'm asking.